Hello, I'm Dylan,
And I'm Keon.
and this is Inevitable, that podcast where we don't wade knee deep into the water fully clothed for once, because this week we watched A Change of Mind,
By Roger Parks
directed by Patrick McGoohan.
and aired on December 15th, 1967.
Oh, Patrick. Oh, Patrick.
Well, that is a great lead-in to some of the behind-the-scenes nonsense Patrick McGoohan pulled this episode. I don't know if you looked any of this up, but doesn't look good for Patrick McGoohan.
I saw some of it briefly, but why don't you take it away?
Well, okay, so this episode was actually originally not directed by Patrick McGoohan. It was originally going to be directed by Roy Rosati, who I didn't write down what his track record was, but he had worked on some pretty prominent things, both in a directorial capacity, an assistant directorial capacity, and just in other capacities as well. So he was set to direct this, but anecdotally, according to someone on set, and this is all according to Midnight Only, who, again, never cites their sources, but according to someone else working on set, Patrick McGoohan came to them and was like, hey, why don't you go get a car for Roy? He's not feeling very well. And when they did that, it was like clear to them what had actually happened, which is that there had been some sort of or some rift had opened up between what McGoohan envisioned and what Rosati was doing. So McGoohan probably just axed him.
Wow.
And took over directing himself. Now obviously, that's a very one-sided take on the story.
Yeah.
This is all anecdotal from the point of view of this guy who was asked to get the car for Roy Rosati.
Mm-hmm.
But given what else we know about Patrick McGoohan, I wouldn't put it past him to do something like this.
I mean, it fits in with the profile that I've built in my mind of Patrick McGoohan based on the previous stories.
Yeah, fits in with the megalomaniacal personality that he seems to have had.
So, good old Patrick just taking control of his show, taking it by the horns and saying, this is mine, I'm directing this week.
And considering the quality of the episode we got, I don't know if that... We don't know what Roy Rosati's A Change of Mind would have been, but Patrick McGoohan's A Change of Mind wasn't pretty. But that might have also had something to do with the fact that this was written by Roger Parks/Parkus. Yes, it's been 2 years since we watched his contributions to Blake 7, and I still don't know how to pronounce his name. Because, Roger Parks did write for Blake 7. He wrote Children of Oron, he wrote A Voice from the Past, and he wrote Headhunter. But according to IMDb, this was actually his first writing credit ever on anything. He had some credits before that were listed as story editor and script editor, but this was actually his first time being listed as a writer. And it's rough. It's a rough episode.
Yeah, it's not great. It has potential. It has unrealized potential, shall we say.
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of plays out in the fact that at the start, I kind of thought it was an interesting idea, and then the longer it went on, the less and less and less invested I was, until by the end I was just like, can please just end. This probably is my least favorite episode of The Prisoner so far.
Oh yeah, it's definitely mine. The weird thing is, the first couple times I watched the show, I remember not disliking this episode, because I remember liking every single one of them on my first two watch-throughs. This time around, though, I'm definitely, and now especially discussing them every week, I'm definitely open. My eyes are definitely being opened to some of the things that I consider flaws with this show. I don't think it's the perfect masterpiece I used to consider it.
Yeah, unfortunate.
Yeah. Oh well.
Oh well. Oh well. I mean, that's why I haven't like gone back and rewatched some of my favorite shows because I'm like, but what if I don't like it as much the next time around? And so I don't even take the risk. I don't even take the risk of lowering my opinion of them.
No, I think you should, because this time around watching The Prisoner, I feel like even though I'm technically I think enjoying it less, I definitely think taking a more critical eye and learning more about the behind the scenes and the making of, and just reevaluating the episodes has been beneficial in some way. Even though I guess I technically enjoy it less now. I don't know.
I mean, I think looking at it from a different perspective is useful and has benefits. Uh, whether or not you or anyone who does rewatch the show is experiencing those benefits is not for me to say. I don't know, but I don't know. I mean, I think what's interesting is that this is your third time through, and this is my first time through, and it seems that we have most of the time similar views on uh, similar views on the episodes, which is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess my opinion hasn't really changed all that much in 4 years.
Turns out time doesn't heal all wounds.
Yeah, the massive gut punch that Fallout was, I'm still reeling from the effects.
I can't wait. We're almost there.
Yeah.
5 weeks.
Yeah. 5 more weeks for your book to arrive, too. No, the stunned silence.
Well, it's stunned because pretty much have to accept I'm never getting that book. They offered me a replacement, and I'm like, all right. And then I was like, just like whenever, and I'll just if one of them arrives, I'll send it back. And then I never heard from them again. So
Did they charge you
whatever.
already? Is that.
Yeah, maybe I should try to get my money back. But $60 for the story. It's the journey, not the destination.
Yeah, I don't know. If I would $60, I would definitely try and get it back if I were you. Maybe if it was like five, I would just be like, alright, whatever.
I mean, maybe.
I did have one little other bit of behind the scenes info, which was that this was all filmed using Studio Port Marion. God, how did I revert to the original pronunciation after 15
You reverted
weeks?
to our completely knackered pronunciation.
So this is Studio Port Marion and not real Port Marion. Anorak Zone pointed out that maybe it wasn't Anorak Zone. It was one of the websites I looked up. Pointed out that causes some very obvious painted backdrops, which I thought some of them were obvious, but I didn't really that didn't detract from the episode for me. It was more just the storyline, I think, that I didn't enjoy.
Yeah, I wouldn't say they were super obvious. I didn't find them very obvious, although I was a little skeptical. I will say that I was a little skeptical.
Yeah. Oh, it should be clear that there actually was Port Marion footage in this episode, but it wasn't with the main cast. So apparently it was all shot in March 1967 because, again, these were done a year in advance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or close to a year in advance because this aired December 67, was shot in March 67.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
And that's all I had for the behind the scenes.
Yeah, I mean, that's more than I had, so.
Guess we'll jump into the in front of the scenes.
You've definitely made that joke before.
Yeah.
So it opens with number 6's stunt double
Yeah.
spinning around the bar. And it's really, really obvious that it's not Patrick McGoohan on the bar.
Yeah, and I want to say that this is the exact same footage we saw last time we saw, like, number 6 exercising. They just reused it.
I think there's an extra bit with him doing this really dumb swingy thing where he swings his punching bag and then he runs towards this rope, grabs it, swings into sort of a U-turn, and then kicks the bag.
Yeah.
And the whole sequence of events is just hilarious in 7 different ways, at least.
But then he gets confronted by some guy and Waldo from Where's Waldo? Or Wally if you live anywhere
We found
in
him,
America.
gang.
Yeah.
He's Where's Wally in the UK, I think. We had him in South Africa, so.
Yeah. I thought it was Waldo in the US and Wally, like, literally everywhere else. But maybe it's Wally in the
Yeah, I
UK
think so.
and Waldo literally everywhere else. I'm not sure.
50-50 shot.
But that's where he was all along in the village.
What if he also got kidnapped by the
Oh my
village
god.
because they want to know?
How he
Like-
goes to all these places so quickly.
Yeah, exactly. So they just start beating on number 6. They just start beating him up. They're like, "Hey, number 6, we're gonna beat you up."
The reason they're doing it is because number 6 is exercising out in the woods instead of the village gym, and they consider that antisocial behavior, or at least that's the excuse they give. Maybe they just want to beat the hell out of him.
I mean, he pretty much admits that it's antisocial behavior because they're like, "Why are you working out here?" And he's like, "Maybe I just want some privacy."
But I guess what I was saying was, like, they're beating him up because of that, or they're using that as an excuse to beat him up, you know?
Ah, yeah.
So number 6 gets taken to this, like, behavior therapy group for people who are exhibiting antisocial tendencies.
Right. And while he's there, we can hear the what's the word? The trial, the meeting for the person in front of him, and they're like, "Go outside and make a speech, and we'll tell you what to say." And basically, they have him say like, "I'm not unmutual. I like people. But I was unmutual, and I was a delinquent. Believe me, believe me, believe me."
Yeah.
Everyone just starts clapping. It's
This
really
guy
weird.
is sort of, he's like, suck the heart and soul out of Brian Blessed and you get this guy, like, he has the look and
Discount
he
Brian
has the
Blessed.
look and he has the voice, but neither is totally there.
He's doing his best, okay? He's doing his best.
I wonder if Brian Blessed was even acting in 67. I know he's like 90 now, so he probably was, but
I'm sure he was. Sure he was.
yeah, guy climbed Mount Everest in like his 70s or 80s or whatever. Man. Did you know that? Did you know he was an Everest climber?
I think you mentioned it before. But
yeah, and whenever I see his tweets on Twitter, as if I would see his tweets anywhere else, whenever I see his tweets, they're like, nothing can stop me now, like, still going strong type thing.
yeah, good on him. Good on him.
Yeah.
He's still rocking it. So good
Yeah.
on him.
So it's number six's turn. He gets taken into the little area.
Yeah, the council room, which is clearly a redress of the control room set, but
Well, it was also used as the council room set in Free For All, I think.
yeah, I believe so.
Because it's the same kind of thing where you have to go down the stairs.
I kind of think there's not a door in the set, and they just put those stairs there and just start filming from behind McGoohan at the top of the stairs.
I'm pretty sure that's, I'm pretty sure that's how it worked. I don't think there's a door that high. I don't think they would build a door that high into the set just
Hey, you
for
never
that.
know. You never know.
Yeah, it's true. You never know. Unless you look up some unsourced information from the usual suspects online.
Well, if we had a picture, then we would know.
I'm sure someone has documented prisoner sets extensively and put pictures of them online, but it's probably one of those super buried things that you find on the 70th page of Google.
It's probably in that book that I ordered that's never going to arrive.
Yeah. So as number 6 is coming into the room, he rips up the I don't even know what it is.
It's the like written test that they have to fill out before they come in to the council meeting.
Yeah. And number 6 just litters everywhere.
Yeah, just throws it around like confetti. Poor Butler's going to have to clean that up.
Yeah.
Unless they've got a janitor. A little unclear on whether they do or not.
Well, number 6 isn't taking kindly to any of this.
Unfortunately, question mark. Unfortunately for him, number 2 goes to meet number 6 at his house after the meeting. They have a recess, and on the way home, number 6 takes a copy of the newspaper, which says that number 6 is to be further investigated, and he's angry at this. And then he goes into his home, and number 2 is sitting there. And I don't know if you noticed this, but the chairs that number 6 has at his kitchen counter look like the most uncomfortable chairs in existence. Because the way number 6 is seated on it is like he's sitting on the edge of the chair. His legs are like straight out at like an angle on the ground, almost like he's leaning on the chair. And like that's the only way the chair will support him. Like that's what it looks like.
Yeah, might as well just stand at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And number 2 basically tells number 6, like, don't, cross the council because they're representing powers higher than even me, and I can't, if they decide to punish you, I can't do anything about that, basically.
Yeah, there's definitely some like factions butting heads in this episode, but it never really feels fully realized to me.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about this at the end, but part of the reason why I think this episode doesn't quite work is because number 2 doesn't really seem like he knows what he's doing in this episode. And not in a like he doesn't have a plan kind of way, but in like literally the actor doesn't really seem like he knows what's going on. Which we know Darren Nesbitt did that too, but he did a much better job at hiding that fact from the audience.
Yeah, definitely. I did get sort of a bit of joy, though, about how, like, this number 2 seems to just hang out at number 6's house, like, because it's, like, both times number 6 goes into his house in this episode, like, number 2 is just chilling inside.
Number 2's like, damn, these digs are better than mine.
Yeah, where does number 2 obviously lives in the Green Dome, right? But, like, we don't really see his quarters.
Yeah, they probably just suck.
Just barracks-like rooms. Like,
What if he doesn't even have any chairs? He just has, like, penny farthing bicycles.
Yeah, that's his bed. The bike is actually his bed. He just lives in, like, a bare concrete room with the bike.
Oh, God.
Oh, my God.
Jeez.
Imagine sleeping on a bike.
Sounds painful and uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to have training wheels on it as well. Otherwise, you'd just fall every time you fell asleep.
Unless you were an absolute god at balancing and could balance even in your sleep.
I wonder if anyone has ever sleep biked. You know, sleepwalking exists, but does sleep biking?
I mean,
Yeah.
probably, right? Probably.
Yeah, probably. Probably.
So number six gets assigned number 86 as his like personal liaison to try get good with the council. I don't know why I said that like it was the title of a Borat movie.
Wait,
Because
what?
the full title of Borat is like Go to America for Cultural Enrichment of Great Nation of Kazakhstan or something like that. So I don't know why I described 86's position like that.
Well, maybe it's because just like Borat was actually fiction disguised as a documentary that people thought were a documentary, The Prisoner, likewise, is fiction that people thought when it came out was actually a documentary account of this place called. No,
I was gonna
I'm
say I
just
don't
making
think
that up.
that's true, but so he number six goes to this little meeting, and they're trying to get him to be more social. And number six is just railing into poor number 42 because she's talking about her poetry. And number six is like, poetry has social value. And they're like, yes, yes, number six, get the heck with it, you piece of garbage.
We'd already been introduced to number 42 in the like correction facility or whatever, because she was like crying hysterically, but nobody like knew why or something.
Yeah, she was the
I
one who
forget.
went in after number six, I think it was implied.
Yeah, I don't know, like so much of this episode, her character just didn't totally land for me, and she's kind of abandoned too after this scene.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you. She didn't really work for me. Well, she's not quite abandoned after this scene. She gets one more scene with the shoot, what was their name? And I didn't even write it down. The committee, the like committee for socialization, the appeals committee. That was it. Because she was one of the members of the appeals committee, and number six is like, wow, part of the appeals committee. Your tides change fast. Number 42. That's not too long from now, actually.
Yeah. Well, I think number six at this point, I don't know what prompts this, but he runs away from the little meeting and he goes to the hospital where he sees aversion therapy in action.
Right.
We had gotten little hints of aversion therapy, or at least something like it in a previous episode.
Yeah.
I think it was Checkmate, if I remember correctly, or maybe it was even Arrival too that we got some of that. Or no, yeah, it was.
I think it was Checkmate.
No, I don't remember. I don't
I think
remember.
it was Checkmate,
Honestly.
but he does see someone in the hospital in Arrival. It might also be shoot. What's the one where he gets numbers two to turn himself in? What was the name of that one? It was like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, what was the name of that one? Shoot.
Oh God. Oh, Hammer into Anvil.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he was in the hospital in that one as well.
Well, what he sees here is definitely more shocking. It sort of looks like a guy in like an old school mental hospital, kind of just strapped to a chair being tortured.
Yeah, he's being tortured with visions of visuals of things, and later on, he sees an image of Rover, which is Rover's only appearance in this episode. I guess they're teaching him to be averse to Rover, which, you know, I mean, a giant floating balloon that can just kill you. I would be pretty scared of that.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, number six finds out from the tally-ho that he's been declared unmutual.
Right. So he storms into his house, and who's gonna be there but number people just actually like go in and out of number six's residence this whole episode, because later on he comes in and just the like appeals committee is just standing in his house, like waiting for him, I guess. But this is when he meets the appeals committee for the first time, because they knock on his door and they say they're the appeals committee and they're willing to help him become mutual again if he'll just, work with them. And this is when he calls out 42 for changing her thing, her motives. And then the appeals committee's like, wow, all right, number six, all right, that's cool, fine, we'll still help you later on.
And this is where we get some of the conflict between the factions, because at this point, number six is set to be lobotomized, but this is, and like number two is using this plan, but he didn't enact it. Like he's not in charge of the lobotomizers.
Right.
He's just using them for his own purposes.
Yeah, it's kind of like how number two said that he didn't really have any control over this, but he's clearly aware of the whole process.
Yeah, and number 86 even says later on, while she's under hypnosis, that she's higher than number two.
Mm-hmm.
Which is weird to think about, because previous number twos have always, whether they were competent or not, whether they failed or not, always seemed to be number two, next to number one's number one. But this number two obviously is not that.
Right. Again, this number two doesn't even seem like he knows what the hell's going on.
Yeah, and I always got the impression that there were, who had powers like adjacent to number two, like Nadia, I think. I didn't see her as being above number two, but I also didn't see her as being subservient to number two. Right. But yeah, number 86 explicitly says that she has more power than number two. Or is above number two.
Oh, number two, what are you doing?
So they do that. They take number six to be lobotomized using this new lobotomy technique.
Right, it uses this ultrasonic light beam thing.
Yeah, now I read that this was originally penned to be a grotesque and violent actual lobotomy, but Patrick McGoohan decided to tone it down. And in the process also decided to tone down some slightly more romantic scenes, which I'm guessing were going to be between him and number 86.
Right.
So not only is he averse to romance, he's also averse to violence.
For now.
For now. Yeah. Just you wait.
Hmm. Well, so this scene reminded me a lot of a scene in a video game, which was completely, utterly horrifying. But if you've ever played BioShock, in BioShock Infinite, they have DLC that ties it into the first two BioShock games. And long story short, there's a scene in there where you, as the character, in first-person view, I might add, are subject to a transorbital lobotomy. And it's the most uncomfortable experience I've ever had in a video game. If you don't know, a transorbital lobotomy is the one where they go through your eye to lobotomize you. So just imagine that, but in first-person view in this video game. Yeah. And the scene gave me heavy vibes of that.
Yeah. Wow.
So. Yeah.
They demonstrate the procedure on like a piece of styrofoam, and part of it just disintegrates. Oh boy.
Yeah. Oh boy.
And you see them do it, but apparently, maybe I just looked away from the screen for a second, but I didn't notice this, but apparently number 86 switches the machine off right before the procedure happens.
I don't think she doesn't switch it all off. What she says later is that she switches off the like ultrasonic sound waves that actually burned the styrofoam. So it was literally just a flashlight on his head.
No. Okay.
Oh my god! A flashlight!
So now begins number two's wild plan, which is to make number six reveal why he resigned via drugs, but also make him think that he's not being drugged and that he in fact is out of it because of the lobotomy.
Yeah, so these drugs make him docile and suppress the anger and the, like, rage, which is what the lobotomy was supposed to do. So he didn't actually get lobotomized. They're just using these drugs to make him think he got
Right,
lobotomized.
the drugs are Mitol. I didn't look up whether Mitol is a real thing or not, but I don't think it is.
I don't think so.
I guess we can just look it up right now, or I'll put it in the show notes. Well, Googling Mitol brought up a chemical plant in Slovenia, so
Oh,
maybe.
great.
Mitol stands for mitochondrial ubiquitin ligase. I can't even read that. My goodness.
What?
Brought up some
What?
scientific papers. Mitol regulates endoplasmic reticulum mitochondria contacts. Huh.
Hmm. I don't know if that would do what they claim
Yeah,
it does in
doesn't
this
sound
episode.
like a drug. And I'm sure these scientific papers were not written before 1967.
Uh,
So number two is using number 86 to slip number six the drug. Even though she is higher
Right.
than him, she is taking part in this plan, I guess.
well, she's the doctor who, like, designed the whole thing, I guess. So I think that's why.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so actually now that we're talking about it, I'm a little confused here. So the lobotomy procedure was a real procedure, right? Like,
Yes.
but they turned it off and didn't use it, and are instead using the drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird to me.
Yeah. I think because they don't want to actually permanently damage
Yeah.
number six.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I think number two even says that they don't want to damage number 6.
Mm-hmm. I guess they just think that like using the placebo of lobotomization is going to be enough to make him reveal why he resigned. Plus the drugs is going to like be enough. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, it's
Yeah, it's a little unclear.
they they kind of go about the plan here because number 86 I think makes some tea or something. And she drops one of the little Mitol tablets and it just fizzes. It's like, oh boy.
Yeah, I think it's really obvious.
Number 6 realizes it too somehow. And that's the other thing too, is like, why does number 6 look like he actually is in a lobotomized state even before they slip him the drugs?
I think so what it was that they gave him the drug when they said they were performing the lobotomy on him.
Oh, gotcha.
Through the injection, but they have to continue to give him the drug. And number 2 says that the drug seems like it's wearing off already, so number 86 needs to go give him another dose, and number 86 is like, too many doses and he'll like die, throwback to ABC. And number 2 just says, well, just go give it to him. He's pretty strong. He'll be able to handle it. So this is actually her trying to give him the second dose.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
So,
but number 6 is clued into it. He uses the second oldest trick in the book, which is to distract her and then dump the contents of the teacup into the plant.
and then he starts making more tea. And
yeah, this is like attempt number 3 is when, yeah, she makes the other tea.
He swaps the the teacups after it's made.
Yeah, but don't forget number 6's misogynist moment of the week, where he throws
Misogynist moment of the week.
Throws in the line. I forget exactly what it was. It's something like I can't remember. Like, every woman should know how to make a good cup of tea, and this one is terrible, and he just dumps it out.
Yeah, he says he can't stand a woman who doesn't know how to make a good cup of tea, I think is the line.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
I think at this point, I don't even know how this happens, but number 86 and number 6 wind up at the little exercise area that he set up, and he hypnotizes her using his watch.
Well, so what happens is she drinks the tea cup with the drug.
Right. He switches them, yeah.
So number 2 realizes that it's been swapped, so he calls 86 to his office and kind of chastises her, but he chastises her, but the drug won't wear off for another 4 hours. So he sends her out, and she goes into the forest because, like, he gives her some really menial task to, like, just collect flowers or something, and runs into number 6 because she's in the forest where the exercise thing is. But before number 6 meets her, he has another encounter with the guy in Where's Waldo.
Yeah.
And they start beating him up, but then he kind of breaks the mental conditioning and starts wailing on them again. Guess they didn't learn their lesson. And then they run off, and then he sees 86, and she explains that number 2 gave her a mission to categorize some flowers, and she has to report back soon.
Yeah, so that's how they wind up in that situation. Forgot about, like, literally all of that. That just goes to show you how engaging it all was.
Can't believe I kept all of this straight, honestly.
Number 6 pulls off his wristwatch and uses it to hypnotize number 86. Maybe he should just,
it's kind of hilarious.
Maybe he should just hypnotize one of the number 2s and just, like, leave the village.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of implied that she's more susceptible to this because of the drug. So,
yeah.
But he should try it, you know? What does he have to lose by trying now?
Yeah. Anyway, he gives her some orders. He asks her what's really going on. She reveals the entire plan. She reveals that she is above number 2. And then he asks her who number 1 is, and she reveals who it is. And no, just kidding. Junkyard.blog actually made that joke of, like, why didn't he just ask her who number 1 was?
Yeah, why didn't he actually? I mean, she seems like she would know, again, like, seeming like she's more powerful than number 2.
Even if she doesn't, she'd just be like, oh, I don't know, and he'd, like, literally lose nothing except the 3 seconds it took to ask. But he doesn't. He gives her some really weird orders. Because what happens next is that he goes back to the village and he pretends that he's been cured. He pretends that the phlebotomy worked and that he's been made mutual. And he's giving a speech about it. And he's like, it's all thanks to number 2. I'm glad to join this community that we've got going here. And
I think he doesn't give her orders necessarily, but I think what he does is he asks her the questions that number 2 is going to ask her because he wants to get the information she's going to report to number 2 out of her.
Well, doesn't he order her to show up as he's making this speech and declare number 2 unmutual?
Yeah, he does give her that order, yes. After finding out all this information.
Which that's what she does. She shows up and she points to number 2 and she goes like, yeah, she just calls him unmutual. Apparently that's enough for the angry mob that beats and chases unmutuals out of town to form and do what they do.
Yeah. I mean, it's hilarious because they kind of just, they never even had any interactions with number 2 that would imply that he's unmutual. They just kind of believe number 86 and number 6 when he starts saying that. And they're like, yeah, he's unmutual. Yeah. A couple blogs, including Midnight Only and the Unmutual Prisoner Archive, draw parallels between this and McCarthyism.
Yeah, and I believe it was Junkyard, the view from the Junkyard / junkyard.blog, whatever you want to call them, that pointed out a lot of the American imagery in this episode, like the Uncle Sam-like posters. I forget exactly what the poster said, but it was it was number 2 pointing at the person looking at the poster and saying, "We want you."
Yeah, I think That's interesting because Papa Parcel actually points out that that poster is basically directly lifted from a UK propaganda poster. Well, mainly because the slogan is actually almost identical, because the British poster said, "Your country needs you," and then the one in the village says, "Your community needs you." So that's interesting.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Junkyard also pointed out in Dance of the Dead there was the village of the people, by the people, for the people, or whatever, which they mentioned was sort of also American in tone. And that made them go down this entire paragraph of like wondering whether the village was in the US, potentially.
Right. Could
Yeah.
be. Could be like in
Yeah, it
Florida,
does look like.
because that would explain how you can just travel straight out and hit Cuba.
Wait, is that what they did? What?
No, well, they in the multiple escape attempts, they like travel directly outward from the village and then go like, and then they hit like Sweden or the UK, right? So like you would need the village would have to be somewhere where that would still
Yeah,
make
well,
sense. Cuba was just, it's not specifically Cuba that they always hit. Cuba's just a landmass there that they would hit in this
gotcha, yeah.
hypothetical. So
Yeah, and maybe number six should try this tactic. Like, have someone declare him unmutual, and they run him out of town so he can leave the village.
I kind of thought that's where it was going to go, was that when number 2 left, number 6 looked like he was going to sneak back into the Green Dome and like leave the village through there. That's kind of what I thought was going to
But no,
happen.
it actually just ends. Number six is still a prisoner. He just decided to use his newfound control over number 86 to run number 2 out of town.
Yeah, and the butler seems remarkably unconcerned about this. You know, the mob runs off and he just takes up his umbrella, pops it up, and just slowly walks after them.
I almost think, now watching it this time around, this theory might not hold up, but I almost think that the broadcast order that we're watching it in is like an order of increasing importance for the butler.
Perhaps, yeah, because he's been getting more and more screen time, it feels like.
Yeah, the little I remember about the next couple episodes makes me think that that's not going to hold up, but we'll see, I guess.
Well, we'll see. It does seem to
Yeah.
be the case now. You know, especially with like in Hammer into Anvil, the butler explicitly being, because I think before Hammer into Anvil, even though the butler's always been there, no one's explicitly called attention to the butler until number 2 tries to fire him in Hammer into Anvil. Although in this episode, number 2 also asks the butler for a cup of tea.
Yeah, that scene also just goes to show you how, like, maybe not how not serious, but like, it's, number 2 just seems so lackadaisical, where he's watching the plan unfold, and number 6 is about to drink some tea, and he's like, "Oh, I'd like some tea too," type thing.
Right. Very interesting. Very interesting. But yeah, that's how it ends, with number 2 being chased out of town.
Again, number 6 running out, or dethroning one of the few number 2s that it would seem like he would be able to escape under his watch. Potentially, or at least have an easier time of it than like one of the other number 2s.
Yeah, I mean, this number 2 does seem to be kind of a bumbling fool a little bit. Someone on IMDb has a list of all the number 2s in order from their most to least favorite, and this number 2 is at the bottom.
Yeah, I can see that.
He doesn't really seem like he does much, you know?
Yeah, I think we skipped it, but he does confront number 6 and ask him why he resigned, but that's about it.
Yeah, this is the first time that someone's asked number 6 why he resigned in like not a dozen episodes, but half a dozen episodes or something.
Yeah, I think so.
And I was like, oh yeah, that's what this show is about.
Yeah, he kind of gets lost somewhere along the way, weirdly enough.
Because it becomes more about just breaking number 6 than it does about finding out like why he resigned.
Yeah, true.
Which you could argue those go hand in hand, and that if you break number 6, then you can find out why he resigned. But they never explicitly go like, "Why did you resign?" until this, since quite a few episodes until this one.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's all I had for the episode itself. I have a few things I kind of want to touch on.
I wanted to touch on just like briefly the like missed potential, because while I was watching this, I realized that like if I was number 2 tasked with breaking number 6, the way I would do it was kind of similar to where I thought this episode was going to go, which was just basically have nobody in the village even treat number 6 as a person, just have them ignore him, just pretend like he doesn't even exist. And it seemed like that was actually working, like that was actually driving number 6 kind of mad when they were doing that before his lobotomy.
Yeah, I would definitely love to see a full episode where number six gets punished by being literally ostracized and literally ignored by everyone and everything in the village, and he thinks that like he himself starts by thinking that that's like a good thing. He doesn't want to be part of the community, but then like he gets so mind broken by the end of it that he willingly submits and rejoins the village community.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of where I thought this episode was going. And I thought that was a really interesting idea, not only because it like probably would have worked, at least into breaking him into like coming back into the village fold, but that it would have been really interesting to watch number 6's kind of descent into like hating the loneliness of everyone ignoring him.
Yeah, and thinking. And yeah, go ahead.
I was to say they touch on this in the episode. Number 2 goes like, "Let's see how the loner likes true loneliness."
Yeah, then it just goes somewhere else, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Oh well. What can you do?
One thing I wanted to touch on is not directly related to the episode, but we or I actually rather have been bringing up how like Kafka-esque this show kind of is, and other like sites that we reference. Night Only continually mentions that as well.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I didn't realize until I just looked it up like a couple days ago that Kafka actually wrote this book called The Castle unfinished, like all of his full-length novels are. It's called The Castle, and apparently the German title is like this multi-layered pun. But yeah, in English it's just called The Castle, and it's about this guy, K, who like all of Kafka's protagonists are like just named K or like some variation of that, who's taken to a place called the Village, which is like this secret bureaucracy that he has to just deal with and like is very mysterious, and he doesn't know where he is, and is basically just the premise for this show.
Huh.
Yep. Thought we wouldn't pick up on it, McGoohan. But we did.
But we did. We're on to you, McGoohan.
Couldn't have foreseen the internet.
He did foresee a lot of things, though.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I would really like to read The Castle, but I'm very averse to reading Kafka's novels because they're unfinished. And something just about that sits wrong with me. I did read The Trial by him, which is technically unfinished, but like you wouldn't know that if you didn't know that it was unfinished. Like it seems to be a full story.
Right.
Like the ending of it comes out of nowhere, but like the book has already just descended into complete madness and depravity and just weirdness by that point that you wouldn't realize that wasn't intended by Kafka when you read it. But yeah, maybe.
Well, the great thing about unfinished things is that you can just invent your own ending.
Well, for The Trial, he wrote the ending. It's just he left out a chunk. So, yeah.
You could just invent the middle part.
Yeah.
Then.
But yeah, so apparently Kafka has a book that just is the premise of The Prisoner. I guess it's the other way around. The Prisoner is just the premise of this one Kafka story, just taken to like weird 60s extremes.
Well, the Unmutual Prisoner Archive has a pretty interesting essay on this story called A Change of Mind in R.D. Laing, Laing, who is apparently a psychologist who published quite a big amount of notable work in the 60s and 70s. I'm not even going to try summarize the essay because I don't quite fully understand it myself and need to read it a couple more times, but he basically talks about how this story relates to the Cold War and Lang's psychology, and he mentions Foucault and Sartre in there as well. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I would love to read through a lot of what is on the Unmutual archive, but the text is all centered, and it just hurts to read. But yeah, that sounds really interesting. I know there's a lot of different essays and just pages on that site that approach these stories from an angle that like we would never do because we just don't have the context.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely interesting and worth checking out, in my opinion. That's all I wanted to mention about that.
Yeah, and that's pretty much all I had. So I guess we can kind of go into our segments here.
Yeah, I think so.
So just so we don't forget about it like we did in what we just recorded before we recorded this episode, why don't we go for Britain's 10 actors?
Yeah, Britain's 10 actors. I only looked up 2. I don't know how many you looked up.
Yeah, same, and we probably looked up both the same ones.
Well, you can start then.
Okay, yeah. So I have John Sharp as number 2.
Mm-hmm.
I just literally listed. He had a very extensive career, and I just listed everything that looked like a big role for him. So he was in Emergency Ward 10, The Old Curiosity Shop, Take a Pair of Private Eyes, whatever that is. He was in The Corridor People, which I feel like I've heard of The Corridor People. Maybe not. He was in The Newcomers, Zedkar's Coronation Street, Her Majesty's Pleasure, Avengers, Shabby Tiger, London Belongs to Me. He was in Warzel Gummidge, that show with John Pertwee. And he was in something called All Creatures Great and Small.
Wow. I also had him in Barry Lyndon, which weirdly enough, someone in Doctor Who this week was also in Barry Lyndon.
Mm-hmm.
Torchwood, I mean, not Doctor Who.
Yeah, check out Trust Your Doctor, a Doctor Who podcast. We're watching Torchwood. It's pretty great.
And then I have Angela Brown as 86. I had her in The Avengers, Bergerac, The Saint, Danger Man, and then a whole bunch of other stuff, but nothing that I really recognized. A lot of one-off TV movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was in something called Ghost Squad. I don't know what that is, but it sounds cool.
Ghost Squad.
Who are you gonna call?
Ghost Squad.
Yeah. Well, as for whether this was a win or a loss for number 6, I'd say it was a win.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think it's a win. I mean, at the end of the day, he uncovers their sort of ploy to try convince him that he's been lobotomized when he hasn't. And not only that, he gets number 2 basically run out of town. So works out pretty well for him in the end.
Yeah, finally gets his house back to himself now that number 2 isn't just hanging out in there 24/7.
Yeah. Still kind of weird that number 2 is just like, you know what? Number 6's house. That's the house I'm going to use.
We haven't really seen any other prisoners' houses except for Nadia.
Yeah, that's interesting to think about, but probably a budget-saving thing.
Yeah.
Although all the houses would probably look the same if we're being honest.
Well, the houses are designed to look like what their house that they lived in before they were kidnapped looks like.
Right,
so,
right. I forgot about that.
It really sucks that, like, in this village that's supposedly supposed to be a lot of quality and stuff, that, like, if you lived in a mansion, you would just have your mansion room as your room in the village, whereas, like, if you lived in, like, a one-room apartment, like, yeah, sucks for you.
just reinforcing the social and economic inequality that exists outside the village.
Yeah.
Great. Good job, village. Even though that's probably what they want, but good job, village.
Well, I think that's all I got. I have a feeling I'm forgetting something that I wanted to say.
Yeah, I have that feeling as well, but, at least we covered Britain's 10 actors.
Oh, we didn't do who was number one. That's why we both have this
Oh,
eerie.
yeah.
Yeah,
Who is number
I
one?
didn't even think about it this week. Damn,
Well, I
blindside me.
did. I think yet again it might be the butler. He seems remarkably unfazed and unmoved by the mob taking down number two, almost as if he kind of thought it was going to happen. And also, his interactions with number six in this episode, just like, I don't know. He seemed very calm, cool, and collected. Even when number six was trying to intimidate the butler, when he was in the council room and the butler was moving the table so he could get out, like, the butler was just kind of unfazed.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
So, that's why I would have to go with the butler.
Yeah, I'll just agree since I didn't really think of anything.
Okay. Well, on that note, we definitely have nothing else to talk about. So, if you'd like to email us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decadavevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on a change of mind. Did you have a change of mind? You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable and find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, and Stitcher, all at the inevitable classic sci-fi podcast. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast. Follow us on Twitter. Next time we're going to be watching Do Not Forsake Me, Oh My Darling. But until then, the end.